Hi, through this tutorial video, I'm going to talk about two topics. One of them is about the exchange rates. And that is, an exchange rate is a price at which one currency can be exchanged for another. For a quarter of a century after World War II, the level of most major currencies were fixed against the US dollar, and the dollar was pegged against. These fixed exchange rates could only be adjusted with the agreement of the International Monetary Fund. This system of gold convertibility ended in 1971 because after inflation of the United States, the Federal Reserve did not have enough gold to guarantee its currency. Well, about the market forces, exchange rates are determined by supply and demand, the quantities of currency bought and sold in the foreign exchange markets. If there are more buyers of a currency than sellers, its price will rise. If there are more sellers, it will fall. Proponents of floating exchange rates, such as Milton Friedman, argued that currency would automatically set a stable rates, which would reflect economic reality. In the 1950s and 60s, monetarist economists, most notably, began to argue that Keynesian fiscal policy had negative effects in the long term. They insisted that money is neutral, meaning that in the long run, increasing the money supply will only change the price level and have no effect on output and employment. But on the other hand, monetarists and believers in the free market argue that since governments are unable to foresee a coming recession any more quickly than the companies that make up the economy, their fiscal measures usually only begin to take effect when the economy is already recovering, and simply make the next swing on the business cycle even greater. Now that the dilemma is that the governments around the world poured huge amounts of money into the economy, monetarists were outnumbered, but continued to argue that this would inevitably lead to massive inflation in the future. Now, the next topic that I'm going to talk is about economics and ecology. And there is a question about if can economics and ecology can be reconciled. Well, the connection between the fields of economics and ecology is as old as the disciplines themselves. When Charles Darwin sought to understand the spontaneous order that emerged through the interaction of a species, he read Adam Smith. Both these intellectual pioneers focused on feedback mechanism and dynamic processes of nature and markets. Despite their close ancestral connection, the two fields are far apart today. Economics and ecology often receive two different responses from natural resources professionals. While economics, which deal with the allocation of scarce human-made and natural resources, is viewed unfavorably by many who are concerned about effects of society on the environment and natural resources. Economics is burdened, in particular, by a misperception that is synonymous with finance, that is, financial decision, are focused with a much broader equity and efficiency concern that provide the theoretical underpinning for economics. But on the other hand, ecology, which deals with the nature allocation of scarce resources, is more often viewed in favorable light. For many years, resource economists have addressed natural resource and environmental issues in theory and in practice. The most recent offshoot of these earlier efforts is the newly evolving field of ecological economics. Nowadays, ecological economists have more interest in a vision of the future, methods for analyzing problems in new ways, and institutions and instruments that are needed to implement a vision that includes recognition that our planet is essentially a closed system in which our societies are subsystems. A sustainable future exists for all species that is constrained by a global ecosystem. Uh, Also, to be conscious and humble given the many uncertainties that exist, and must become the to be more proactive. It is completely true that by investing in technology to reduce the impact of climate change in the distant future, would redistribute wealth from the poor current generations to the wealthy future ones. Nevertheless, it is a fact that we do not presently implement policies today that would be highly cost effective and would benefit people in the poorest. The priority should be put on helping people currently living below the poverty line rather than on fighting global warming. Worse, by actually focusing on climate change, we are going to force developing countries to divert some of the benefits of their growth, which is so useful to fight poverty, towards cutting carbon dioxide emission, which is primarily a concern of the West.